You understood late. I saw it in your eyes the moment I walked through that door, a subtle widening of your pupils, like they were struggling to let in more light. Outside, the evening sky was a deep blue, still refusing to turn black, and just one lamp illuminated our living room. The walls cast long shadows, and you stood near the entrance with your phone clutched against your chest, as if guarding a secret. That was the night everything changed. I should have known sooner. My gut had whispered warnings in the weeks prior, hints I brushed aside as mere paranoia. My wife, Lisa, had been distant. That word feels too weak now. She was there, physically present, but every conversation felt like talking to a memory. We'd be eating dinner at our wooden kitchen table, the same table we picked out when we were still newlyweds, and she'd stare just past me. Her spoon would hover midair, as if she'd forgotten I was even in the room. I had thought it was just stress, maybe from her teaching job, or from something else I couldn't pinpoint. I even told myself to be patient, that women sometimes sink into moods men have no map for. Trust is a weapon, my father used to say in his more reflective moments. You can use it to hurt someone or to protect them. I had chosen to protect Lisa by trusting her unconditionally. But standing in that dim space, I realized my trust had turned on me. It had become a loaded gun pressed against my own ribs. Her posture said it all. Stiff shoulders, widened eyes, fingers locked around her phone. I couldn't tear my gaze from that device. I asked, "Everything okay?" As calmly as I could manage, but my voice had a slight tremor, a dryness. She nodded too quickly. Then she pressed her lips together, like she was bracing for an interrogation. I didn't press further. I'd only just gotten home. I still had my car keys jingling in my hand. Instead, I forced a small smile, walked to the kitchen, and placed my keys on the counter. My footsteps felt heavy. I remember noticing a single dish in the sink, a wine glass with a faint pink lip stain. Clearly hers. For some reason, that small detail gnawed at me. She didn't usually drink wine alone. She followed me in silence, but I sensed her presence like you sense a thunderstorm approaching. The air was charged, and I could feel her tension behind me. She said nothing. I said nothing. After all, if I demanded an explanation right away, we'd be off to the races. I kept quiet because I believed a patient man has more control than an impulsive one. Silence can be armor, if you wear it right. I went to my phone, wanting to check our family group chat. My mother, still in Indianapolis, had posted something earlier about my nephew's baseball game. I scrolled through messages, random updates from my sister about her kids, and a link. Perhaps it was reflex or simple distraction, but I tapped it. That's when I heard her voice. Lisa's voice. At first, I assumed it was just a casual audio message she left in the chat, but as soon as it started playing, my heart seized. It sounded like her, but not her. I heard a soft moan, then a low gasp thick with desire. It was Lisa's voice, but drenched in an intimacy we hadn't shared in years. My body tensed. The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. The message was only a few seconds long, but it felt like an entire lifetime of betrayal compressed into that snippet of sound. I froze. My limbs felt numb, my mind blank, and my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. My family chat had become a conduit for something vile. That's when her phone rang. Lisa's phone. It startled both of us. She stepped away, not even glancing back at me, and answered it in the hallway. I could only stand there. My ears burned from the echo of her moan. That was the precise moment trust metamorphosed from a shield into a blade, slicing me from the inside. I turned my gaze toward the dark window above the sink. My reflection looked foreign, the furrow in my brow deeper than I'd ever seen. My eyes ringed with something like anger mixed with heartbreak. I was the same man, but I felt unrecognizable, as though I'd been splintered in two. She reappeared moments later, phone clutched in one hand, her free hand twisting a loose strand of hair. She opened her mouth, then closed it, as if reconsidering her next words. When I finally spoke, my voice had an edge I barely recognized. How long? The question slipped out as if I were interrogating a suspect. She blinked. Rick, please listen. I shot out my hand, a small gesture telling her to stop. I didn't want explanations. Not then. Not now, I said. My tone was measured, each syllable weighed. I need a moment. Her lips parted, but she found no words. In the flickering overhead light, I caught the sparkle of tears in her eyes. Or maybe it was just fear. Eventually, she retreated into the bedroom, leaving me alone in that kitchen with the dish in the sink, the unlocked phone, and my own racing thoughts. I didn't kick furniture or punch walls. That's never been my style. See, I've always prided myself on control. My father raised me to stand like a pillar in a storm. Yell if you must, son, but always keep your head. I made myself breathe, ignoring the primal urge to scream. My wife's moan echoed inside my skull. Every replay shattered a different piece of my reality. Loneliness can be a slow poison, but betrayal kills instantly. My mind hopped from memory to memory. The date we bought that oak table, how she tested each chair for squeaks, laughing with a childlike glee. The night I first told her I loved her, how her face lit up like the sunrise. Then I saw an image of her lying in bed with someone else. Maybe she was draped in sheets, eyes closed, moaning exactly as in that audio clip. Was that how it happened? Did she arch her back the way I remembered from our earliest days? Rage burned through my veins, but I refused to let it out. Not yet. I don't remember sleeping that night. I sat on the living room couch, staring at the dark TV screen, the remote lying untouched beside me. She never came back out of the bedroom to talk. I guess some part of her knew words couldn't undo the damage. I heard her footsteps pacing back and forth, but she never approached. Eventually, quiet settled over the house. It felt like being entombed in a vacuum, a space where no sound or light could breach. In the morning, I rose from the couch, my neck stiff, and my eyes gritty. She was in the kitchen, sipping coffee. Her gaze flicked up to me. "Morning," she murmured. I just nodded. Silence, again, became my fortress. If she tried to speak, I offered curt replies. Each question from her came out small, hesitant. Finally, she said, "Rick, you have to let me explain." I paused mid-step. Explain what? My words came out too loud, bouncing off the walls. That you recorded yourself, like that, and sent it somewhere. Or that you didn't send it. Maybe you hit the wrong button. Maybe you forgot to delete it. Which explanation do you want me to believe? She flinched as though I'd struck her. Silence followed. My anger soared and dipped, leaving me drained. I realized any explanation she gave would be useless right then. Every detail would be a new blade slicing deeper, or a breathless attempt to bandage a wound that needed surgery. "Let's not talk now," I said, my voice low. "I have to go into work." It was a hollow excuse. I was in no state to manage any professional responsibilities, but I'd be damned if I sat around this house another second. I grabbed my jacket, avoided her eyes, and left. At the office, I drifted through the motions. My coworkers greeted me, but I only responded with half-smiles. The place reeked of stale coffee and fluorescent lighting, both of which usually comforted me with their routine banality. Not this time. Everything felt skewed. I went to my desk, tried to open emails, typed a few lines to a client, realized I was repeating the same sentence, and gave up. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lisa. I stared at her name on the screen. I pictured her face from last night. Tight-lipped, anxious, guilty. My stomach churned. I set the phone face down and went to get a coffee I didn't even want. When I got back, I read her message. "Please come home early. Let's talk. I'm so sorry." I never replied. Instead, I left the office for an unscheduled lunch break. Driving aimlessly around the city, somewhere on the outskirts, I pulled into an empty parking lot near a fast food joint. I sat in the car, staring at the steering wheel, my reflection in the rearview mirror. I wondered who the hell I was now. A betrayed husband. A fool too blind to see the warning signs. My father's watch glinted on my wrist, reminding me that time passes whether we want it to or not. I flicked it with my fingertip, half hoping it would break, just so I could feel something tangible and real. But it kept ticking stoically, as if mocking the chaos inside me. Eventually, I returned to work, though I accomplished nothing. Near 5 o'clock, I gave up the charade and drove home. The sun was setting, streaking the sky with pink and orange, mocking me with its serene beauty. Lisa was waiting by the front door. She greeted me with a wavering smile. "Rick," she began, stepping toward me. I raised a hand again, a single motion to silence her. "Not here." Not while my thoughts still felt like a frayed wire. She looked on the verge of tears, but I passed by without a word. We ended up in the living room once more, the same lonely lamp illuminating a small circle of space. The rest of the room receded into darkness, like an ocean swallowing the horizon. She stood by the couch, and I stood near the TV. "Finally," I said, "tell me his name." My voice was quiet, controlled. Her lips trembled. "Rick Daunt." I took a single step forward. "I won't ask again." She bowed her head, hair falling across her cheeks. "Daniel." The name hammered my chest. Images of this Daniel flashed in my head. Maybe he was younger, maybe more daring, with hungry eyes. I pictured him on top of her, coaxing those moans out of her throat. My jaw tightened, but I forced myself to remain calm. "How long?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "A few months." Her voice sounded haunted, as if each word was cutting her from the inside. I nodded slowly, absorbing the blow. "Months." While I walked around clueless, trusting her with my life. A rush of heat flared behind my eyes. But I refused to break. "That's all," I said, stepping back, as if concluding a transaction. Then I turned and went into the kitchen. "Rick, wait," she called after me. I didn't listen. My own heartbeat drummed in my ears. I poured myself a glass of water, took a sip. Every muscle in my body was clenched. Her footsteps approached, but I angled away, refusing to look at her. Finally, she retreated again. I found it easier to breathe with her out of sight. That night, for reasons I still can't fully explain, I made a seemingly absurd decision. I bought her a subscription to a nearby spa. Maybe it was the maddening logic that if she was trying so hard to wash away the traces of someone else, I'd help her do it. Or maybe it was some twisted attempt to reclaim power, to show her I could handle this with a calm mind, even if I was screaming inside. The next day, during my lunch break, I phoned the spa and set it up. When I told her later that evening, she stared at me in disbelief, then let out a short, bitter laugh. "A spa subscription? Are you serious?" "Yes." Her eyes brimmed with confusion and something else. Maybe guilt, or fear, or shame. "I don't need." I stepped closer, leveling my gaze at hers. "It's not about what you need," I said. "I want you to have it. Enjoy your massages, your scrubs, your fancy lotions. Scrub every inch of yourself. See if it washes out the stench." My voice was calm, but each word was a bullet. She pressed her lips together, tears finally spilling. "God, Rick, this isn't what you think," she tried. I silenced her with a slow shake of my head. "Stop. Please, let me explain." Her voice cracked. I never wanted this to happen. In that moment, pity almost tugged at me. But the memory of that audio, of her moan, overshadowed any compassion. I turned away. "Use the spa or don't. Up to you." And then I moved to the hallway, ignoring the tears trailing down her cheeks. The next day, I did something that surprised even me. I called Daniel's family. I had found the number through a bit of digging in our joint phone bill, noticing an area code. I guessed he might be from out of town. It took a few calls before someone picked up. A woman's voice, probably his mother. My voice was cold, taut with suppressed rage, but I kept it courteous. "I'm calling about your son," I said. "He's been seeing my wife." The woman inhaled sharply. For a moment, I heard nothing but static breath. Then a muffled call for someone else in the house. Eventually, she came back, voice trembling. I'm so sorry, sir. I had no idea." "Neither did I. Until last night," I replied in a tight monotone. "He should know. I'm ending this. I want him gone. But he's your blood, so you stick by him. You watch him realize what he's done. I don't care if you hate me. I need you to know he's messing with a married woman. And that stops now." "I understand," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I hung up. My breathing was ragged, but a strange sense of power replaced the helplessness I'd felt. It was like making sure the other side knew the war had started. At least they wouldn't hide in ignorance. They could see the bombs had already been dropped. That evening, Lisa came home late. She smelled faintly of a perfume I didn't recognize, and I detected a trace of male cologne clinging to her sweater. My stomach twisted in knots, but I said nothing. I was sitting in an armchair, a single lamp lighting the corner of the living room. It created deep shadows around my face. She hesitated at the doorway, probably registering the threat in my posture. "Rick," she ventured, voice subdued. I waited a moment before responding. "Did you enjoy yourself?" She placed her purse on the table, eyes glimmering with tears. It's not." "Spare me," I interjected. My tone turned cold, precise. "Just go take a shower, or better yet, a bath. Rinse him off, right?" A choking sound escaped her throat. "Why are you doing this? You think I'm enjoying any of this? That I wanted you to find out this way?" I leaned forward, letting the light reveal the fury in my eyes. "I think you made a choice," I said. "And now you live with it." My voice was almost too level, like we were discussing a minor household inconvenience. But inside, I felt 1,000 conflicting emotions battling for dominance. Hatred, heartbreak, longing, confusion, and this terrifying emptiness. She bit her lip, tears sliding silently down her cheeks, and moved toward the bathroom. I heard the water running a few minutes later. I pictured her slipping out of her clothes, stepping into the tub. A wave of disorientation coursed through me. This was the woman I once revered, someone I cherished like a sanctuary. Now I hardly recognize her, or maybe I hardly recognize myself. At some point, the sound of water halted. She stayed in there for a long time. I imagined her sitting in the tub with her knees drawn to her chest, sobbing quietly. I should have felt pity, but I just stared at my father's watch again. The ticking reminded me that I was drifting further and further from the man I used to be. Finally, the bathroom door opened. She emerged in a bathrobe, hair dripping, face blotchy. I rose from my chair, walked past her to the bedroom. She followed tentatively, keeping a few paces behind me. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started packing clothes. Methodical. Socks, shirts, underwear. One by one. Her breath hitched. "Rick, what are you doing?" "I'm leaving," I said, my back to her. "Wait." She touched my shoulder, a gentle plea. I jerked away, spinning to face her. My eyes bored into hers. "Don't," I warned. "Don't lay a hand on me." My voice cracked with quiet rage. She let her hand fall, tears welling again. "Can't we talk?" "Talk," I echoed. "Now you want to talk. After how many months with him?" "After that message in the family chat. My mother might have heard it, or my sister. Did you even think about that?" She shook her head, biting her trembling lip. "I never meant for that to happen, I swear." You never meant to get caught," I corrected, shoving another shirt into the bag. "Big difference." She inhaled shakily, her voice tiny. "I loved you," she whispered, tears rolling. No. My tone was final. "You loved the stability. You loved the idea of us. But somewhere along the way, You found something else you craved. I paused, the duffel bag half full. Tell me, Lisa, did you at least think of me when he touched you? She covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a sob. She didn't answer. That silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. I zipped the bag shut with a violent tug. Then I took a slow breath and looked at her. She seemed so small, so fragile. A part of me raged at that vulnerability, because it tugged on my heart, reminding me of the woman I once adored. But the voice of betrayal roared louder, snuffing out all pity. I hefted the bag onto my shoulder and walked toward the door. She followed a step behind, tears silently flowing down her cheeks. Rick, please. I stopped at the threshold. Without turning, I said, you won't come back here again. Then I walked out, leaving her standing there, the echo of my words hanging in the air like a death sentence. I ended up at a cheap motel. The walls were an off-white color, the bedspread worn and tired, a single lamp that flickered whenever the air conditioner kicked on. I sat at the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, head bowed. My father's watch felt heavy, pressing into my wrist like an anchor. What now? My whole existence had revolved around the idea of a stable marriage, a future with Lisa. I had tried to do everything right, but now I was alone, exiled from my own life. I let my mind replay the events. The audio message, the confrontation, the look in her eyes, guilt, fear, maybe relief that the secret was out. A swirl of questions hammered my brain. Did she love him? Was it just physical? Did I drive her away somehow? Why was I so blind? I thought back to our earlier years, how she'd laugh at my dumb jokes, how we'd dance in the living room to old country songs, the times we'd plan holidays to see my mother or spend a weekend with her parents in Oregon. That felt like a distant memory from a different timeline. I closed my eyes, remembering the rustle of sheets in the quiet nights, her body warm against mine. It made me want to vomit, recalling the moan I heard in that blasted audio. So intimate, so foreign. Sometime in the middle of the night, my phone rang. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. Then she tried again. And again. Finally, I picked up just to end the noise. What? I said. Oh, thank God. Rick, please, where are you? I clenched my jaw. Don't worry about it. I'm worried about you. Why? I snapped, voice pitched with sudden bitterness. You worried you won't have someone to pay the bills? Or are you worried I'll do something rash? Her breath was a shaky exhale. I just want to talk. Too late, I said. You understood late. Or maybe I'm the one who understood too late. Doesn't matter now. My eyes burned as I stared at the peeling wallpaper, a swirl of oranges and browns. Go to bed, Lisa. Rick. I hung up. The phone rang again, but I silenced it. A hot tear slipped down my cheek, shocking me with its intensity. I realized in that moment I was crying. Damn it, I muttered, wiping my face. I was furious at myself for feeling anything. She didn't deserve my tears. Sleep came eventually, fitful and full of nightmares. I woke at dawn to the faint hum of traffic outside. My neck ached from the cheap pillow, and my eyes were puffy. For a few seconds, I forgot the entire fiasco, but reality crashed in as soon as I glanced at my phone. A cluster of texts from Lisa, some missed calls. I turned the phone off and tossed it aside. I shaved in the tiny motel bathroom, watching my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked hollow, ringed by exhaustion. I tried to recall the last time I felt so empty. Perhaps when my father died. But that was different. That was heartbreak laced with respect and closure. This was heartbreak laced with betrayal and a deep sense of humiliation. The question pounded in my head. Who am I now? My identity hinged on being Lisa's husband, the dependable man who provided for her, who believed in trust. That trust was gone. So what was left? I packed my things and drove aimlessly for a while, eventually stopping at a diner for coffee. I stared at the steam curling from the cup, letting my mind wander. Anger remained, but it was overshadowed by a thicker numbness. I wondered if it would ever fade, or if I'd have to live with it forever. When I finally returned to the house 2 days later, I found Lisa's car in the driveway. My stomach knotted. I was half hoping she'd be gone. But it made sense. She had nowhere else to go unless she stayed with him. I parked on the street, ironically wanting to keep my escape route clear. Inside, the lights were off except for one lamp. The same damned lamp we kept leaving on in the living room. She was there, sitting on the couch in pajamas, hair disheveled, a mug in her hands. A swirl of guilt and pity passed through me. She looked up, eyes bloodshot from crying or lack of sleep. I closed the door behind me, dropping my keys on the side table. We stared at each other in charged silence. Finally, she spoke in a voice hoarse with tears. "I'm sorry," she said, as if the words themselves were meaningless, but she had no choice but to repeat them. "I know that doesn't fix anything." I walked closer, dropping my duffel bag at my feet. "No, it doesn't," I said quietly, my tone neutral. "You have 5 minutes, Lisa. Say whatever you need to say." She inhaled sharply, setting her mug on the coffee table. "I never wanted to hurt you," she began. "It started a few months ago. Daniel was, I don't know, he made me feel seen, like I wasn't invisible. My chest tightened, and I made you feel invisible." She broke eye contact. "No, but it felt like we were just existing. We had our routines, our daily lives, but I felt alone. I know you were working hard, but every night you came home exhausted and distant." Tears streaked her face again. "I'm not blaming you, I promise. But I felt like I'd become just another piece of furniture in this house, and I needed to feel alive." Her words sank in like jagged shards. I thought of all those nights I'd been too tired to ask about her day. All those mornings I rushed off to work, not bothering to share a meaningful moment. But still, betrayal wasn't the answer. My jaw clenched. "So you found him," I said, "and decided that would fix your loneliness." She winced. "It wasn't. I didn't plan it. It happened slowly. We started talking, then She covered her face with her hands, voice muffled. "I'm so ashamed." I shook my head, anger rising anew. "Ashamed? Maybe, but not enough to stop." She didn't argue. Silence reigned for a long moment, broken only by her shaky breathing. My heart pounded as I fought the urge to lash out with every ugly thought swirling inside me. But I kept quiet, letting the wave of emotions pass. "Rick," she whispered, lowering her hands, "I never stopped loving you. I was lost." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Love," I repeated, tasting the word as though it were poison. "Funny thing, love. It's supposed to protect us, but it can also break us. You say you love me. Then why did you record that moan for him?" Her cheeks flushed. She bowed her head, fresh tears splashing onto her pajama pants. "I don't have an excuse," she said. "I hate what I did." I studied her face, searching for sincerity. She looked broken, haunted. A part of me ached to comfort her, but I couldn't bring myself to cross that chasm. I was the one who felt gutted, a hollow man with no idea who he was. My father's old admonition about trust echoed in my head. A weapon can kill or protect, and I'd been disarmed by my own naive trust. Now I was brandishing it again, but this time it felt more like a tool for vengeance than a shield for my marriage. Finally, I spoke, my voice measured. "I'm not here to forgive. Not now. Maybe never." I glanced at my watch, as if the time might give me clarity. "I came to get the rest of my things. I'll need space to think, to figure out if I can ever look at you without seeing him." My tone was flat, but inside I was howling. She nodded, tears rolling silently. "I understand," she rasped. I grabbed a few more belongings, stuffing them into a second bag. She watched from the couch, hugging her knees like a child. I found myself noticing small details, the trembling of her hands, the hunch of her shoulders, the bruise-like shadows under her eyes. I realized she was unraveling, but so was I, each in our own private hell. As I zipped the bag, she stood, stepping closer. The lamplight etched shadows across her face. "What do I do?" she asked softly. "I'll do anything." I paused, letting a beat of silence hang. "Go to your spa appointments," I answered bitterly. "Try to rinse away your guilt." Her eyes flickered with pain. "That's not fair. None of this is fair," I snapped. The words cut her short. "Nothing about betrayal is fair. You lost your right to talk about fairness the moment you let him in." She swallowed, tears glistening on her cheeks. She reached out as if to touch my hand, but I stepped back. The room felt colder. Finally, she nodded and let me pass. I left her standing there again, the duffel bag digging into my shoulder. Outside, the evening air was crisp, stinging my nostrils. I tossed the bag into the trunk of my car. My hand shook as I gripped the steering wheel, staring at the porch light that glowed faintly around her silhouette in the front window. For a split second, I saw her raise a hand to the glass, a silent plea. I put the car in drive and pulled away, my chest so tight it felt like I might burst. The next few days fell into a pattern of uneasy solitude. I found a short-term rental, a tiny one-bedroom apartment near the outskirts of the city. The walls were bare, the place smelled of fresh paint and disuse, but at least it had decent furniture. Each morning, I showered, dressed, and made my best effort to function at work. Clients asked about my weekend. I forced a polite smile and gave half-hearted answers. No one suspected the turmoil behind my eyes. Some nights, I returned to the house to gather more belongings. Once, I saw a spa brochure on the kitchen counter, an appointment circled in pen. She was actually using that subscription. The thought triggered a bitter chuckle. Good. Let her try. Let her knead out the knots of shame. Let her soak in rose-scented water until her skin wrinkled. The anger would surge, then recede, replaced by a dull ache that rotted my stomach. For the first time in my life, I felt truly adrift. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh, if I should talk it out, maybe even try counseling. But then that audio clip would echo in my head, her breathy moan calling someone else's name, and all the confusion turned to rage again. I spent hours reviewing our finances, dividing accounts in my head. Though I didn't finalize anything legally, I considered filing for divorce. In fact, I drafted the paperwork once, but never turned it in. Something held me back, a combination of exhaustion, heartbreak, and perhaps a shred of denial. Maybe I was waiting to see if she'd prove her remorse, if I'd find a reason to believe we could salvage something. One evening, I called my mother in Indianapolis. She must have heard the tension in my voice, because her first question was, "Son, are you all right?" I considered lying, but found myself saying, "Ma, I'm not okay. She's cheated on me." The words tasted bitter on my tongue, but also somewhat freeing. My mother let out a soft gasp, then fell silent, letting me speak. I told her a fraction of the story. My voice broke at times. She listened quietly, making soothing noises. I didn't want pity, but having someone acknowledge my pain mattered. "Come visit," she said gently. "Take some time. Clear your head. This doesn't have to be decided overnight." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "I might," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. She offered me love and warmth from 2,000 miles away, and I felt like a lost child again. It reminded me that even in the depths of betrayal, I wasn't entirely alone. But I didn't go. Work obligations, plus a stubborn pride, kept me in Seattle. Instead, I drifted through days with a near-empty soul. The nights were the worst. Sleep was elusive, my mind conjuring images of Lisa with him. Sometimes I'd bolt upright in bed, trembling, a phantom moan echoing in the darkness. It all came to a head a week later. I hadn't spoken to Lisa in days, but she sent me a text. "He's gone." I ended it. "Please, can we talk?" My heart pounded as I read it. ended it, as if the affair was some side hobby, or maybe she meant it sincerely. Either way, I felt compelled to see for myself. I was tired of living in limbo. So I drove to the house, arriving just after dusk. She was there on the porch, wearing a sweater and jeans. The old wind chimes we once bought together jangled in the breeze, sounding eerily nostalgic. Her posture slumped, arms crossed, eyes puffy. She invited me inside. We sat in the living room, each perched on an edge of a chair, as though we were two strangers forced to share a waiting room. The lamp burned softly, casting everything in a dim glow. I ended it with Daniel, she repeated, voice shaky but determined. He won't contact me again. I studied her face, searching for sincerity or hidden motives. Why now? I asked. Why not a month ago? Or whenever you realized you were hurting us? She squeezed her eyes shut. Because I was stupid. I'm sorry, Rick. That's all I can say. Apologies don't rebuild trust, I said, my tone clipped. She nodded, tears gathering. I know. Her fingers twisted together in her lap. But I'm willing to try anything if there's a chance we can fix us. My gaze flicked around the room, lingering on the pictures on the mantel. Photos from our wedding. A trip to the coast. Some holiday gatherings. Memories of a life I used to love. Is that even possible? I muttered. You tore something vital out of me. She sucked in a tremulous breath. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, time, space, whatever you want. My eyes stung. I used to be so sure of who I was, I whispered, echoing the doubt that had been haunting me for days. But now, I don't know who I am. I'm not the trusting husband. I'm not the father figure. I'm just this hollow shell. Let me help you, she pleaded. Please. I almost laughed at the irony. You want to help me heal from the wound you inflicted. She leaned forward. Because I love you. Despite all the mistakes, that's still true. That's why I'm willing to fight. A swirl of anger, sorrow, and a faint glimmer of hope collided in my chest. I stood, pacing across the room. And what if I don't want to fight? My voice rose. What if I'm done? She stared, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. If that's how you feel, then I'll respect it. But know that I will always regret losing you. I turned to face her, my eyes burning with unshed tears. For a moment, I thought about the vow we made on our wedding day. The promise to stick together in sickness and in health. Was betrayal a kind of sickness? Could we treat it, or was it terminal? Silence enveloped us again, so thick it felt like wading through tar. Eventually, I found my voice. You need to leave, I said, quietly but firmly. She drew a shaky breath. Where? I don't care, I snapped, instantly feeling guilty for my harshness. But I couldn't back down. We can figure out the legalities later. But you're not staying in this house. It's mine. I pay for it. You decided you needed something else, so find somewhere else to sleep. She covered her face with both hands, sobbing. Rick, go, I insisted, meeting her eyes. Pack a bag. I'll pay for a hotel if you need it. But you're not staying here. My voice trembled with finality. She stared at me, tears dripping off her chin, but she didn't argue. Slowly, she rose and walked to the bedroom. I listened to the muffled sounds of her rummaging through the closet. Each rustle of fabric felt like a needle pricking my skin. She emerged after a while, eyes red-rimmed, a small suitcase in hand. She paused near the front door, turning to me as if searching for a last shred of mercy. Take the car if you want, I said, voice dull. I'll get a ride from a friend if I need to. She nodded stiffly, tears still falling, and walked out. I heard the trunk slam, then the engine start. Headlights flashed across the living room window. Then she was gone. And for the first time in days, I was truly alone in my own house. The lamp still glowed, casting shadows on bare walls. I stood there, breathing heavily, heart pounding like a drum solo. My gaze drifted to the photos on the mantel again. So many memories, now stained with betrayal. For a moment, I felt like collapsing to my knees in grief. But I just inhaled, exhaled, clung to the numbness that kept me from shattering. Silence weighed on everything. In that silence, I discovered a bitter sense of relief. She was gone. The house was empty of her presence, her smell, her secrets. Maybe now, I could begin the slow process of remembering who I was before all this, or forging a new identity out of the shards she left behind. I turned off the lamp and let the darkness reclaim the living room, the only faint light coming through the window from a distant street lamp. Darkness, and one small glow. My life in a single metaphor. My father's watch ticked on my wrist, each second a reminder that time doesn't wait for healing. My throat tightened with unshed tears, and a trembling exhale escaped my lips. I was alone, betrayed, but not destroyed. Not yet. Part of me still felt the urge for revenge. Maybe something bigger, something more dramatic. But as the quiet pressed in, I realized I'd already taken my revenge. I cast her out, forced her to wander, to feel the consequences of her actions. And maybe that was enough. I walked to the door, locked it, and stood there a moment, my forehead resting against the cool wood. The final words I'd said to her reverberated in my memory. "You won't come back here again." Even as I whispered them under my breath, a fresh wave of pain rolled through me. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, how I would wake up in an empty bed without her warmth. But I did know that trust is a weapon, and I would no longer aim it at my own heart. If she ever came back, it would be as a stranger seeking permission to enter. And if I ever let her in again, it would be on my terms. For now, the house was mine. My silence was mine. My rage, my heartbreak, my uncertain future. Mine. I closed my eyes, letting tears fall, knowing that this was both an ending and a beginning. And in the darkness, with that single street lamp glow, I stood alone, listening to the sound of my own breathing, until I felt strong enough to move. Then I turned off the porch light and left everything else behind. You won't come back here again.